Good evening and welcome to Dumb Seo Questions, episode 147. Each week we meet to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+. With us tonight we have David Amerland. David is a world-renowned author of 8 books, including Google Semantic Search, which you can see I'm holding up. SEO Help is David's latest. David has pushing 400,000 followers on Google+. He's probably the only bloke with more page views than Masataki Wasa. Also with us we have David Rozam. David is an SEO copywriter. He's been a copywriter for 30-odd years and an SEO copywriter for the last 10. You'll find David Amerland that you'll find at, what's your URL, David? davidamerland.com, that's right. And you'll find David Rozam at writingforseo.org. Masataki Wasa is webmaster of wasaweb.net. He's also a Google Top contributor on the AdSense and the Google Plus Help community. Micah Fisher-Kirchner is from the USA. He lives very close to Silicon Valley, and he is the senior SEO manager for Zendesk.com. Niraj Pandey is a friend of mine from the old days on the Google Webmaster Forum. Rob Mars is an AdWords aficionado. He is based in the Netherlands, and you can find Rob at marketbiz.nl. Marketbiz, marketbiz.nl. And TC, Tim Capper is a Google Top contributor, apparently, on the Google My Business community. Tim runs a business in Corby in the frozen wastelands of the USA, the UK, and he can be found at onlineownership.com. He's a conversion rate optimization specialist and proud to call himself an SEO. Our first question tonight, let me see what it is. It's a question on extensionless URLs. This question is, that's better, that might be more viewable. He said, our help is much needed. Extensionless URL, do they affect SEO? One of my clients' projects, LondonHotels4U.com, is in the revamp stage. The site includes URLs that end with ASPX, and if I choose to remove the extension, do I need to opt for a 301 redirect to save the history of the site's URLs?
I think, Jim, your comment on that, I can actually mark it as set as best. Yeah,
well, actually, look, mark it best answer. I mean, Tim Capper can't get them all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, you know, as Jim said in the comments, there's not a real issue between kind of what extension you're using. You will need to, in the end, redirect it over. You could use a canonical at the start and then 301. Depending on how many you have, you can also just 301 them if it's not too many. But yeah, you're going to need to opt for those and keep them running if any of them have had history and backlinks from the past.
Excellent, thank you, Micah. Anybody else like to chip in on this one? All right, we've only got 7 questions tonight. which is good. We can have a nice, relaxing time. This is from Constantino Seo, who is experimenting with SEO. Constantino said, "Hi everyone, I recently started studying and experimenting with SEO, and I have a question. I created a short URL, www.abc.com/Asia-Pacific/N-G-B/offices-2015. One of my colleagues mentioned that for SEO purposes, I should have used that URL, but added in /services/investors-developers. I just missed a comment at the bottom. He said, I am now confused. From what I understand, there is not a huge difference between a short and a long URL. Would someone be able to help me? Thank you."
Oh, well, we've been having that debate for some time now. Now, essentially, having some kind of keywords in a URL does help, but obviously the longer that URL is, the less the help that you're going to get from the keywords becomes. So if you're going to have a URL which is as long as the one you has, it is a little bit questionable whether he's going to get any SEO benefits by having those keywords there. By far the greater focus should be in the content of the page, the way it's set up in terms of headers and the text itself and what else it contains, and obviously what other pages it is associated with, because it says offices, so obviously it fits into an ontology of sorts within the site, and that's where perhaps the main focus should be. Certainly, you know, it's user-friendly to have a short URL. It's good to also try and in that short URL to have a little bit more of a description perhaps than what he has, unless there's a good reason for that. I mean, you know, the context here is a little bit narrow. If there is an ontology building effort on the site, maybe it makes sense, and the short URL is fine.
Thank you, David. Anybody else like to add to this one?
I'd also, you know, looking at the structure of that URL, it's obviously an internal page within a category, within, you know, don't forget to use your, oh, my brain's just gone blank. Don't forget to use your breadcrumbs and mark those up so that, of course, you know, Google's going to understand, as David said, he's going to understand the structure and where their page fits within the whole, you know, within the whole site. So don't just rely on your URL. Obviously, remember there's other things involved to help a search engine understand where that page fits within that site, that category, and as in a general overall position.
Okay. Anybody else? Can I offer something, and please correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, but I've always thought that like having a long URL with multiple folders, like Constantino's colleague has suggested, I've always thought that the deeper that you bury your URLs in folders, the less likely they are to rank, that they have less authority coming down from your homepage, each folder level down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, looking at his URL, and I'm going to leave out the language declaration there, but then we've got Asia Pacific. Obviously, let's say that would be his top line category. Services, yeah, fine, but you probably could have left that out as a thing. But investor, developer, and offices. So we really only, if that URL was in a correct structure, is only 4 deep, which I would say that if you went any deeper than that, you're going to then start running into crawlability issues. But I mean, essentially he's 4 deep, and if obviously the site is properly structured, then that in theory shouldn't be a problem. But if he starts waffling on and going longer and you know, then you're going to obviously run into problems.
Okay. Next question is from Krishnan GM. He wants to know the latest on-page SEO factors.
Okay. Everything that used to work in the past still works. We still look at the mention of the keywords in a very realistic natural language pattern. We still want H1, H2 headers. We still want relevant links to other pages pointing from that particular page, which are associated with the content and help bring it up. Having said that, there are other things which are now beginning to also become important. One of it is the page structure itself in terms of words and text, and how that affects the visitor. If you have a lot of pictures above the fold, for instance, in a low quality, that it becomes a factor because it affects the end user experience. If the page itself is not relevant to the rest of the site, also begins to affect it. So essentially, it has to fit in with everything else that the site does, and it has to look at delivering value. The social aspect of the page, you know, if a particular page has been exposed to, you know, shared through Twitter, reshared perhaps through Facebook or Google+, that also seems to become a corroborative signal. It's not a ranking signal, I must stress this, because Google has said it time and again, but it actually helps to verify the validity of the page, the importance, and the relevance in terms of search queries. So these are the things you should be looking at. You should have sharing elements, you should have really good content. If you're using pictures, make sure they're good quality pictures, and if possible, pictures which actually add to the story as opposed to some sort of stock photograph you're throwing in to break up the text and attract the eye. Google reads pictures now, it reads entities within those photographs. So if you have a picture which is relevant to the story, then you're adding depth and you're increasing the SEO juice, if we can call it that, of that particular page, plus all the other things which we used to do.
Thank you, David. Anybody else like to add to this one?
Did we mention? Sorry, I missed part of it. Was mobile talked about at all?
No, I didn't, and you're right. That has to be there. Mobile friendly.
Yeah, mobile friendly. You know, it is a bit of its own on-site, and then basically just making sure how your device looks on specifically the mobile, not tablet, not desktop, but just specifically geared towards phones. Size of, for example, like size of the font. Is it readable? You know, no pinch to zoom, no having horizontal scrolling. Those types of kind of themes that makes just kind of unfriendly for a user on the phone. Those are kind of the new things. It's not necessarily the desktop side. You know, page load time, for example, yeah, to an extent, yes. But yeah, those are probably for sure some of the newest and latest, since those were, I guess, comparatively, this is just the last few months.
Micah, what you just said is actually really important because just about 3 months ago, we had a case with one of the corporate clients. They were looking at the mobile page of their website, and it was very mobile friendly. And when we did the audit, what we discovered was that some of the clickable elements on a phone screen were too close together, and we had to basically redesign the page to adjust for that. Now, because we did that, we actually saw a 25% increase in traffic from mobile devices. And I thought that was, just on a relatively simple change, which it only came up at the audit because, we were all really convinced that we had a mobile-friendly page. So it goes to show how important it is actually, and I'm really glad you mentioned this.
Just out of curiosity, was that just something that you guys found on your own, or was it something that actually Google called out?
No, we just the company had a budget every 3 years to redesign its website, and because it had been redesigned before the earlier than 3-year period, we thought we better just run an audit so we don't waste money unnecessarily. And Google hadn't mentioned it, but we looked, at the audit stage, all these things came up. So
Nice. Well, that's definitely a good find for that. So.
yes.
Before we move on, can I put in a plug for a free service which I've been using recently, and it's just fantastic. If you Google for peak user testing, P-E-E-K, there's a company called User Testing which is offering free random user tests of your website, and they have both desktop and mobile, and I think it's fantastic. I can't tell you how much I've picked up from just having a random user go over a site that we've been working on, and some things are just so fundamental, so significant, and so obvious once they've been pointed out. I recommend that everybody should use it. It's really great. Anyway, end of plug. Let's go on to the next. We've got 7 questions tonight, guys. We're nearly all through. Here's one from Elray Resulton, and as you know, Elray inherited, he was thrown in at the deep end at this company, hadn't done SEO before, and he is looking after some large sites. It's titled Same Business Name but Different Locations. Elray goes on to say, I am having a bit of a problem about my pages that have been already indexed in Google. The first one, www.philbooking.com /hotels/Philippines/Baguio/El Cielito -hotels-Baguio. And the second one, www.philbooking.com /hotels/Philippines/Metro-Manila/El Cielito-hotels/ Macati. Oh God, Elray, what have you done to me? And the third one, look, I'm not even going to attempt to read it. You guys can read it on the screen there. His question is just about to appear. He said all of these hotels are named El Cielito Hotel, but are in different locations in the Philippines. He said, I've used El Cielito Hotel and Phil Booking as my search term, but it only shows the home page and not the pages that I've stated above. Do you have any suggestions to fix this?
Whoa, okay. Yeah, I mean, it comes back down to the URLs, to the length of the URLs that we've seen, and you know, the key word here in every case is right at the end of an extremely long URL that also appears to be largely duplicated. And my suggestion here is that I suspect if the pages aren't coming up, the pages themselves aren't strongly differentiated. And usually, and hotels tend to be, you know, prime offenders here. What they do with different locations, they take the central headquarters or the central branch content and just dump it on a page with everything else the same except the name of the location. Because from their perspective, they're still the same brand, they're just physically located somewhere else. And it's not sufficient for Google to determine exactly what that page is supposed to do. So really, you need to work a little bit harder with your content, perhaps, and certainly with your URLs. But I think the way you're trying to do it also is a little bit, you know, a little bit more complicated than it should be. You know, maybe you should have a central page where you can just pick the location from a drop-down box. You know, it could be something which could be solved with a little bit of clever programming from the site itself, instead of creating all these different pages with content and then having to try and get them indexed sufficiently for search to show them up in response to a search query. if you're already getting traction on the central page, maybe the easiest solution here is to work with that and actually rework the site. So when you land on a page, you can basically, pick a location and then either be directed internally to a page or the content itself changes and you can make a booking.
Thank you, David. Who else would like to comment on this one?
I suppose before I dive into this, I should have actually turned these wonderful URLs into pages in my browser. But as David was saying, with hotel-type sites and many e-commerce sites I see, basically there's an enormous amount of duplication in content because of laziness, just the sheer size of the problem of how many products we got. I've got a client who has, I think, 5,500 products on their website, and there is an amount of duplication there because they're not willing to have it all rewritten. However, it's something when you get into the situation and you're finding that the pages are not being featured in Google. I think you really do need to go back and have a look at the quality and quantity and uniqueness of the content on those pages. It's just one of those things. It's almost impossible to avoid at some stage. You get a big enough site with enough level of overlap and perhaps enough depth of URLs, enough depth of pages, and you've got to work hard. You've got to work hard on the content.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, El Ray, I hope that you found what you were looking for. Here's one from Mikey Milios on G+ reviews next to the URL on a search engine results page. He wants to know, how do I get my G+ reviews to come up next to my URL, like in the photo? He's added a photo which you can view on the SEO Questions community on Google+. Showing the knowledge graph. He said, my competitor has their thing first on the page and they get the splash, but on their own URL, they also have their reviews and rating while I do not. Does anyone know how I can fix that?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, there are two elements to this. Google+ reviews only start to count after a certain level. So if you have relatively few, like 5 or 6 or 7 up to 10, they don't necessarily add anything to search. The second thing is that when you have reviews coming up in your own URL, you're actually using a rich snippets structure to draw them in and display them. And that really requires the sort of semantic markup which you need to do. There's no easy way that I know for doing this. You need to know some programming. So you actually need to be able to get into the code and get your hands dirty. I'm not sure, maybe with WordPress, I think some modules are being developed recently for that, but I'm not 100% sure. So that makes it a little bit easier if it's at the stage where you can actually implement it. And that's what you've got to do. Rich snippets displayed on search tend to attract more clicks, the click-through rate is higher, and the apparent searcher satisfaction rating is higher, and these become ranking signals in their own right, so it does actually help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what David said, I think quite a lot of CMSs now, depending on what your users do, offer plugins to help you mark up your reviews. Just remember not to spam your reviews. Each page needs to have their own individual kind of set of reviews and review structure. Don't just implement, let's say I've got 5 reviews, and implement that 5 reviews out of 10 on your home page across all your pages. Each page should have its own particular review structure in it. So naturally, some things won't have that. Your contact page isn't going to have a review structure. Your terms and condition page, your site accessibility. Just bear these all in mind, because Google now is really cracking down. So certainly don't spam your rich snippets.
Yes.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point. I was going to say that's really cool, because I wasn't sure at what stage the CMS modules are.
Yeah, I think WordPress offers, Magento offers. Yeah, I think majority of them do. If he doesn't, like you said, you're going to need to you're going to need to know a little bit of coding. Assuming you can edit your site, you know, just understanding some basic HTML. You could you know, use. I would probably say basic HTML would be your best option. That's easier to implement than sort of the new JSON LD. You'd probably, you know, with a bit of copy and paste and a bit of understanding, you could pretty much get your rich snippets showing with HTML.
Okay, and I'm very glad you mentioned Tim, about spamming pages, because Google have very specifically said that reviews shown on non-relevant pages actually begin to count against you, not just discarded, but it actually begins to drag your site down.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, you see people do this all the time. They whack in a plugin, they don't modify it, and all of a sudden their contact page, their terms and condition page has like had, you know, 500 reviews. I'm like, really? Yeah, it happens all the time. Just you know, take the time. Don't rush the job. Take your time and really, you know, select which pages are going to, you know, and genuine reviews. You know, don't fake it. If you've had only one review on your punk, you know, your pink fluffy beanbag page, mark it up with one review. You know, don't panic about it. Those will build up over time. If you've got obviously put a review structure into place, especially if you're on an e-commerce site, where people can actually review the product itself. Put a review structure into place. Don't be shy to send a follow-up email after. I mean, it all depends on how your e-commerce is set up, but let's say you get a ping notification 2 days after it was sent. Don't be afraid to send a thank you and a follow-up email to the client saying, look, you know, hope it's arrived. Are you satisfied with it? And you know, would you mind leaving us a review? And give them different areas to leave a review. Don't just sort of think about your site. You can obviously link them back to the product page they purchased, from the product they purchased, where they can review. Give them the option to leave it on your Google business page. Give them an option to leave it on their Facebook page. Are you featured in any other review sites? Give them an option to leave it there as well, you know, also. So by giving them a good choice, they can pick which is easiest for them, and generally you tend to get a good response, rather than giving them, let's say, just one option and then they've got to register and log in, and you lose a lot of reviews that way. Give them a good option, and don't be afraid to ask. And by building it into your your customer service, where they actually get an additional email 2 or 3 days later, it also gives them an opportunity to you know, to see that you actually care about them, their product, are they happy, and it's good for building customer relations, not just getting that review at the end of the day.
Yep. Very good. Any more comments before we move on with this one?
No, I think we covered that.
Thank you, David. This is from Muiz bin Mohammed, who's asked a number of questions of us on Web 2.0 link building. Muiz said that, so I started link building. I created some links through Web 2 properties. I've been reading stuff online. They are good to start. I've done some guest posting as well. I came across tumblr.com. You can only post a URL. That is a do-follow link. The question is, if it's a do-follow link, then why are they not listed in the links to your website section of the Google Search Console? Are you guys creating links through Web 2 properties? No. If yes, how is it going? Not good. What other methods will you suggest for link building?
Okay. I think link building itself as a dedicated strategy still has a place, but it is nothing like what it used to be. And unless it is taken on seriously with brand values and brand concept in mind, it is most likely to backfire and actually help your SEO. Now, links obviously still count. Now, they count in terms of traffic and visibility, and they still count in your ranking. So the question you're really asking here is, how do you build links? And the best accepted method right now is to essentially become linkable in the first place. If you're creating the kind of content on your website that is compelling, valuable, unique from the perspective of the function of the website, because it is really difficult to actually create unique content or anything. If you work in a particular sector within an industry, you're likely to have competitors and copycats, etc. It's very difficult to actually come up with a totally original point of view on anything within that sphere. However, you can create content that is original in its intent, and this intent that is important here, because then it answers specific queries from your potential audience, which then makes the website user-friendly and valuable, which then makes it linkable. And this long chain of association in my lengthy explanation essentially comes down to be valuable. If you're valuable, then you're a valuable web property. People will link to you because you're creating value, you're adding to whatever else they're doing. If you can't be valuable, then the link strategies you suggest, which is scattering links everywhere, trying to get some kind of traction, is most likely to backfire. They're fairly empty. You're wasting a lot of time and energy. It won't give you what you expect in terms of traditional SEO techniques. You know, this is 2010 and beyond. We've moved way past this now.
Yeah. Anybody else? I see that Muiz bin Mohammed asked a follow-up question, which is an interesting one. In the SEO news, in the SEO questions community, he asked, what is your take on .info domains? Are they harder to rank, or is that just a myth?
Well, like anything, there has to be a really good reason why you're actually getting a .info domain. If you're getting it because you think it's the only available thing you have and you want specific keywords in the URL, well, then, you know, the .com domain still has a certain aura around it, certainly from the end user perspective, if not necessarily from the search engine's point of view. But the end user perspective will translate in search engine traction, because it will result in greater credibility in the eyes of those who see it in search, which will give you more click-through rate, which then becomes a ranking signal. So this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, theoretically, a .info domain isn't necessarily harder to rank. If there's no good reason for it to exist, i.e. it really does serve information on something and it doesn't sell anything, it doesn't serve ads, it doesn't do anything else, then it will rank fairly easily. If you're getting it because the .com and .whatever is taken up, and you think, I'm going to get the keywords in the URL and then I'm going to try and rank this, then it will be harder to rank. But not necessarily because it's a .info, but because already there are existing domains with those keywords in the URL, more or less, trying to do similar things. So you're competing directly against them. They probably have more traction already because you're a latecomer. They already have established presence on the web. Google trusts them more than you because you just arrived. So then, yes, it's an uphill battle. But there's no inherent difference which is hard set and which you can actually look at.
David Roseanne, if you're speaking, you're muted.
I said, is Jim asleep?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Well,
okay.
We can hear you.
Did he hear the explanation?
I think
Yes.
so. We've all heard it.
Okay. Oh, okay, great. All right. And yes, and I think Masataki said that essentially the answer was given in the comment as well. He said, most spam sites go for a .info domain. There is that perception, certainly, and that works against you. So yeah.
Oh, no. I was referring to his comment in the thread in which he says, here's my secret recipe.
All right.
And he goes on to say what his secret recipe is, and I think sort of more as a public service announcement, it probably should be pointed out that's probably not the right way to think about it. If anyone is reading it and think, oh, that's a great idea.
Yes. We seem to have lost Jim.
Hopefully he comes back very soon.
Yes.
Otherwise, the broadcast could stop. I think
we're good for a good half hour if he doesn't come back.
Okay. I thought it was a few minutes rather than half an hour.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, I think it's a good half hour before it goes off.
Okay.
If he doesn't come back.
But he has all the questions, and we don't have them. So.
Let's check the run list and see if we finished or not.
There's questions.
Another question. So, do you think we should...
It's been asked by attorneys at law. I think we ought to preface any answers with suitable get-out clauses.
Yeah. We are not liable for any damages arising from comments we make on this Hangout.
That's right. And everything should be prefaced by, in my opinion.
Or in someone else's opinion.
Yes, or somebody else's, exactly.
To quote.
Yes.
Me.
Anyway, shall we go ahead with it? And
yeah, I think so.
Hopefully Jim will come back. So this is a question from Hunter & Hearne, Attorneys at Law, PLLC. And it's titled, Is it going to be duplicate content? Hi group, my name is Bill, and my wife and I run a small law office out of our home. We have a small marketing budget trying to compete with very large law firms in our market. So I dedicate most of my free time trying to learn about SEO and getting our website out there. My question is this: is it a bad idea to put copies of my blogs on both our WordPress blog site and on our actual website? Is this creating duplicate content that will ding us in the eyes of Google and other search providers? I like having the content on our website because I often backlink to blogs when appropriate in answering questions, commenting on forums, etc. But I also like having the WordPress blog because I use it to backlink to more specific subjects on our website. Any thoughts would be greatly appreciated. And he lists his website and the WordPress blog.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the easy question here is that the easy answer rather is that, in a sense, it is duplicate content. So you've got the exact same content appearing in two different sites. Google will look at one, it will look at the other, and have to try and decide why is it appearing on both and which is more relevant. Having said that, Google occasionally has said that duplicate content that actually makes sense doesn't necessarily hurt your SEO. They usually refer to product pages when they say that, or company pages which describe services. So here we're talking about blog entries, which will be harder to justify perhaps. I think the real question is, why would you do that in the first place? Why would you post the same things in two different areas? I understand that probably it's a labor-saving device, but it's not really going to work very well. Essentially, when you create content, especially if it's original content, i.e. opinion, ideas, etc., and particularly in the legal field, where a lawyer's opinion and perspective offers the opportunity to actually showcase your skills and talk about things in an accessible manner that people actually want to find out about.